you had a conversation with a voter who was asking about your record on guns. You said to him, I'm still waiting for one fact from you, one fact about me being anti-gun. Give me one fact, got one. Back in 2009, when you were running for governor, Sean Hannity asked you for an area where you might be moderate to left. This is obviously running for governor of New Jersey, right, not for the Republican primary in Iowa or New Hampshire. And you said guns was an area where you would be moderate to left.
I'm a law enforcement guy, and so I always believe in making sure that public safety comes first. But much of what I've seen over the last 6 years in the gun area has not been about public safety. It's been about grandstanding by politicians. And that's why I vetoed the .50 caliber rifle ban. That's why I vetoed a reduction in the magazine capacity from 15 to 10. That's why I vetoed a statewide ID card for gun owners. Those things are not about doing anything with public safety. I've always believed that public safety is paramount. And we've got to make sure that we keep the guns out of the hands of criminals. That's what I meant when I talked to Sean, and that's what I mean today.
But you did, earlier in your career, support the ban on what gun control advocates called assault weapons.
Yeah, when I was 31 years old.
You don't agree with it anymore?
Listen, I think it's a lot more complicated than I thought it was at 31 years old, and I've learned a lot in the last 21 years. So yeah, a long time ago. By the way, you know, I've changed a lot of my positions over time. Here's the thing. If you're a thinking, breathing human being, and life experience is something you take in, and you never change your mind, then you're stubborn.
And there is so much evidence that if guns were not so readily available, if we had universal background checks, if we could just put some time out between the person who's upset because he got fired or the domestic abuse or whatever other motivation may be working on someone who does this, that maybe we could prevent this kind of carnage.
What would you say, particularly in a place like New Hampshire, where hunting is a big deal, to gun rights advocates who are going to say, look, I'm not so sure I like a guy who at one time had an F from the NRA?
Well, it was an assault weapon ban, and what I learned from that experience is you write a law and it doesn't really have any meaning. I'm a Second Amendment advocate, Chris. I don't believe the government should be taking guns from people. I think people have a right to be armed, and look, that's what we've done in Ohio. And I think they've been very pleased with what I've been able to do. But it's not about pleasing them. It's keeping the Second Amendment. It's allowing legitimate gun owners to be able to do what they want, which is to exercise their constitutional rights. So people need to worry about that.
Do you regret your vote for the assault weapons ban in '94?
No, you know, going back and regretting, it's just when I look at it now, it was superfluous. We were adding a law that had no impact, and I don't think that's ever smart to do.
One of the questions that arises is the disconnect or the difference between you and Sanders on the issue of gun control. He comes from Vermont, which is a state that has a lot of guns between both Democrats and Republicans. What's the difference between you and Bernie Sanders on gun control?
Well, there's a big difference. I mean, both of our states have hunting traditions and value our open space and conservation lands, but in our state, I actually led the fight to pass comprehensive gun safety legislation that required background checks, outlawed the sale of assault combat weapons. I feel very firmly that this is a reasonable step for us to take to save more lives, and I don't believe that that is the position of Senator Sanders.
I come from a state which has virtually no gun control, and yet I voted to ban certain types of assault weapons. I voted to close the gun show loophole, and I voted for instant background checks.
What would you do about the gun shows where it's easier, when you go to a gun show, it's easier to get a handgun than it is a library card?
Well, Joe, I must tell you, Mike, I'm a Second Amendment person. I'm big on the Second Amendment, and you have some very sick people that shouldn't have guns, and we're all into that, and everybody agrees with that. You have some real whack jobs, and it would be nice if communities would report these people. You know, so often when you have a shooting, they go back to the community, and the community, half of the people say, oh, yeah, we always knew he'd be trouble. We always knew he was a sick puppy, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm very big into the Second Amendment, and I believe in the Second Amendment, and I think you need it for protection and everything.